Hi, everyone, and welcome to the virtual edition of HalfStack. I'm very excited to be part of this conference. My name is Karen Kenzie. I'm a senior software engineer. I love to volunteer at different initiatives to support developers in their professional growth, and I'm also interested in psychology. As our lives move more and more into the virtual, and even this talk is virtual, I thought it will be a nice idea to show you how you can create your own virtual world with HTML and the DOM API, and A-Frame, which is a web framework for building virtual reality experience. It is based on top of HTML and the DOM. It has great documentation. It's an open source project, and it supports most VR headset and also the browser and mobile if you don't have any headset like I don't. So let's get started. The first thing you need to do is to open an HTML file, regular HTML file, and add this following script to the head, and you're good to go. Now, if you're familiar with game development, you know that the thing you need to do is to add a scene. The scene is the global root object. It holds all the entity of our virtual world within it. So let's add a scene. And the scene handles all the boilerplate for us. So once we add the scene and we go to the browser, we can see that we have here a button that we can click in order to enter and exit VR. When we click on it, and if we have a VR headset, it will render the content to our headset. And let's add an entity to our world like this. Now, by itself, it won't do or render anything. If you can see over here, we have nothing. In order to add appearance, functionality, and behavior, we need to add components. Components are objects behind the scene with schema defining the properties it receives, and also life handler methods such as init, remove, tick, talk, play, pause, etc. And we have multi-property component and single property components. A-Frame comes with several components that you can use, and you also have community components that you can use. Now, components are reusable chunk of data, or even they encapsulate JavaScript code that you can use in order to add appearance, functionality, and behavior. So the first thing we want to add is a position. Where do we want to place our 3D object? And because we're dealing with 3D, we have 3 axes we need to deal with. We have X, Y, and Z. So let's set the position. Now the Z index moves towards us. So if we want to see an object in front of us, we need to give it a negative Z index. And in order to add appearance, and we can add geometry. Let's say we want to add a box to our scene. So we add primitive box. And we can also set the colors using material. Now, we have multi-property component and single property component. It's based on the schema. This one is a multi-property component. It looks like inline CSS style. This is a single property component, and it resembles regular HTML attribute. It's represented by HTML attribute. And we can set the material, set the color to red. And we have here a box. Now, because it's a pattern that keeps repeating itself, A-Frame defined it as a primitive. A-Frame has several primitives that you can use. One of them is a box. Now, primitives are syntactic sugar. Behind the scene, there are entities with prescribed components with default values, and they map between HTML attributes and components properties. For example, if we want to set colors, all we need to do is to add color, let's say green, and without the typo, and that's it. We don't need to specify material color, green, and behind the scene, the color is mapped to material.color. Let's set a position as well. And now if we remove this one, you see how shorter and cleaner it is? Like, this is just a syntactic sugar. It's easier for beginner to get started with A-Frame with this. And let's remove it. And now we have this green box, looks the same, but it's much more cleaner and easy to use. Now, I don't know what about you, but this background, it's a bit boring. So let's use a community component called environment. In order to use it, we need to grab the CDN link and add it to the script over here. This is the CDN to the environment component. And what we need to do is to add an entity and specify the environment component. Now, this community component comes with several presets. My favorite is forest. And just by adding this line of HTML, ta-da, we have a magical virtual forest. We can also control the number of trees we have here. So if we want to set different numbers of trees, we can set the dressing amount and set it to, for example, 10. Then we will have only 10 trees in our, not this one, sorry, in our environment. Okay, but what I want to show you is how you can really customize your virtual world. I have two close friends, my person, as they say in Grey's Anatomy, and I want to invite them to meet me at our favorite place for pancakes. So what I want to do here, they both have VR headsets, by the way. I want to create a virtual world, customized virtual world with Harry Potter inspired theme. And I want them to collect items, magical items, and then I want to surprise them with the location with an invitation to meet me for pancakes. So what I want to do here is basically to remove this entity of the environment, and I want to use a different primitive called Sky. Now, Sky receives a source. It adds of an image. It adds a 3D 360-degree image to our scene. Now, when we use images and when we add models, 3D models to our world, it's recommended to preload them for performance. And in order to do that, we need to add the assets management system and add our assets over there. So we do it like this. We have the assets. This is the asset management system. And that way we tell A-Frame to preload the assets that appear over here. So let's grab the image for the background. Let's set the source to images. And let's give it an ID. That way we can link the source over here to the asset we preloaded over here. So we can use a selector and we have an inspired Harry Potter virtual reality. See how amazing it is? It's really, really easy. Really, really nice. Let's remove the box. It's not really Harry Potter related. And let's add the 3D models that we want to add in order to create kind of this quest game for my friends. So I don't know how to create 3D models, not yet, but I do know how to use the internet and search for 3D models that I can use. So if we go to Sketchfab, we can find Harry Potter inspired 3D models and click download 3D model, credit the creator, and download the GLTF model and use it in our Harry Potter virtual world. Now, I've already pre-downloaded several models, as you can see over here. And what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to add to the asset management system all the models that I'm going to use in order to create this virtual reality experience for my friends. So let's add assets. Assets item. This is the structure. The model is in the scene GLTF model. And I'm going to choose the following. I want to bring down, let's use Harry Potter suitcase. Start with Harry Potter suitcase. And I'm going to show you Harry's suitcase. Hopefully I don't have any typos. Let's give it an ID. And now I'm going to use a entity and give it a GLTF model and specify it, link it to this item. And let's see if it works. Let's give it a position. Let's say -1. Okay, so you see here that the suitcase was added, but it takes over our entire world. We're basically inside of the suitcase. So if we want to scale it a little bit, we can use the scale component in order to shrink it a little. Let's say shrink it like this. Okay, so this is much better. And it is placed on top of the bench, which is really nice. Now, as we have the developer tools, A-Frame comes with an inspector. So you can click, if you have Mac, Control-Option-I, or if you have a different computer, you can use Control-Alt-I, and you can see here, inspect the entities, play around with different kind of components that you can add, for example, animation, light, and stuff like that. It's really cool, and you can copy-paste the result from here, and you can, of course, move it, play around with it, and select you can also resize it. And it helps you also to debug and peek under the hood of A-Frame. So let's go back to the scene. Maybe we will use it later. And because entity with GLTF model is a common pattern, A-Frame also created a primitive for this. By the way, if you have certain kind of entity with a set of components that keeps repeating itself, you can also define your own primitive, and you can also share it with the community. Okay, so you have the GLTF model, primitive, and you can specify the source like this. Let's copy paste this one. Let's copy paste the position and the scale. And instead, you see it's a bit cleaner, even though it doesn't look shorter, but it still works. So it's nice. And let's add another primitive, which is the camera. The camera determines what the user sees. Usually it's added as a child component of the scene, like everything in our world. Wait a second, let's add it after the asset management system. And now, if you want to place, to fix items into the screen, so they will be viewed no matter where the user look. For example, in games, usually you display the score and the amount of lives and stuff like that. We can add it as a child component of the camera. That way, no matter where we look, we will see those entities. So we can add text, for example. Let's say we want to add text with a value, welcome to the virtual, without the typos, to the magical world. Collect all magical items to get a surprise. And let's add it in a certain position, let's say to the left. So we need to give it a -X. Let's see if we see a text. So you see here, we got a text. And now no matter where we look, we will be able to still see the text being displayed and in our view. Okay, so I said it in the text that we need to collect magical items. Let's add 2 inspired Harry Potter magical items for my friends to collect in order to get their surprise and get my personal invitation for pancakes. In the same way, we can either add entities declaratively in the HTML, or we can use JavaScript code to add them if we want. Let's start by adding 2 magical items. Let's add, it's better to add the assets first. Now, if we're already in the asset management system, I want to add now all the models that I'm going to use throughout the game, even if it's not right now. There are 2 that I want to add right now, and I also want to surprise them with Dumbledore and the pancakes. So let's add everything now. So let's add the Elder's Wand to collect as a magical item. So I'm going to add it over here and over here. Let's add the Time Turner as well as a magical item I want them to collect. Okay, Time Turner. And let's give it an ID. And I want to preload Dumbledore as well. Dumbledore. Oi, wasn't paying attention. Just making sure I don't have any typos. Dumbledore, and I want to grab the pancakes as a surprise, and also Harry Potter's wand. So let's get Harry. Right, I'm just checking that I don't have any typos. Harry's wand. Okay. And of course, the pancakes. Okay, so let's add a GTF model. And let's start with adding the Time Turner. So source. Let's get a Time Turner and set a position. Let's choose a random position, for example, 1 -5. Let's go and see if it was added. Sometimes it takes a little bit time to render. We can see the Time Turner over here. It's huge. So we need to scale it a bit to shrink it. So let's change the scale to, let's say, like this. Let's see if it worked. And we have our Time Turner. Now, if we're dealing with a Time Turner, the best thing to do is to animate it to rotate. So let's do it by using the animation component. So when we use animation, we need to define the property, in this case, rotation. We need to define the 2, which let's turn it over the Y. So let's say 0, 30, 60, and let's say we wanted to continue rotating. So let's set loop to true. Let's see if it worked. Dun, dun, dun. See how great it is. With a simple line of code, we have really amazing things in our environment, virtual reality. And let's add also the Elder's Wand. The same way. We're going to add the source link to the assets we already preloaded. And let's give it a scale, because if I remember correctly, it's also a bit huge. So let's shrink it, and let's give it a rotation. Rotation as well, let's say. And let's see if we get the wand. Okay, so we have it over here. Let's move its position a little bit because it's not ideal. I haven't set the position, so let's set the position. Oh. Okay, position to, let's say, minus, so it will be a little to the left. Let's see. Much better. We have the wand over here. And we can start implementing our game. So if we want to allow for basic interactivity, such as click and mouse down, what we need to do is to add additional child to the camera, which is a cursor. So let's add it over here. Great. And now we will be able to see this ring over here that we can use in order to implement event listener for clicks and stuff like that. Now, logic can be implemented inside of components. It is the recommended way because that way we are making sure that the code is executed in the right time, meaning after the entity has been attached and initialized. But we can also use plain JavaScript. So let's go to our JavaScript file, grab the scene, grab those entities, and add event listener in order to listen when the time and the wand, time turner and the wand are being collected, so we can implement our game. Let's give ID, so we can grab it by ID. So this will be the time turner. Let's give this an ID as well. Let's wand. Okay, now we're good to go. Now in the game, we can use the document, the DOM API. Let's grab the scene first by using the DOM document query selector. Now we can query by CSS or by ID or by attribute. So let's grab by the scene. Now, if we're not implementing the logic inside of a component, we need to make sure that the scene has loaded and then run the code. So what we need to do is to check for it. If scene has loaded, run this code, else add event listener to listen for when the scene is loaded, and then run the code like this. So now, what do we want to implement in our function? We want to update the score, make sure that we collected all the relevant element, and add a surprise to our scene. So this will be our function. And what we want to do here is to grab the time turner. We can get a scene and we can query selector for the time turner by ID. Okay. Like this. And then we can add event listener. The event listener for click. What we also want to do is to grab the text because we want to update the text that the user see based on his progress in the game. So let's grab the text, scene, query selector, and let's say over here that we want to do text, and we want to update the text. So we use the set attribute, and we can set it, let's congrats. We need to specify the attribute, which is the property, which is value, and then I can specify the value to set. You collected a magical item. Let's say we also want to have a const specifying the number of magical items, the total number of magical items. Let's say for this simplicity, we have 2 magical items. So, and we also want to keep track of the score. So let's set score. Let's set it to 0. And every item we collect, we want to increase our score. You collected a magical item. You have, let's change it a bit so we can add logic over here. You have, okay, let's reduce it. To collect. You have more to collect. Now let's update the score. And let's see if it works. So I have this one. I've added an event listener for click on the time turner. Let's see if I edit it. Click event, score, the text. Congrats, you have collected time turner. Should have worked. What am I missing? Click. Has loaded, my mistake. Now let's see if it works. Still doesn't work. Click, time turner event listener, text, I grab the text, a text, set attributes, I grab the scene, this is the score, I called run over here, loaded, add event listener for click. Let's see if we have any errors. Unexpected. Cannot read add event listener of null. Yes. So time turner selector. I forgot to give it an ID. Now it should work. Let's close this. And now we're good to go. Yay, congrats, you collected a magical item. You have 1 more to collect. Great. See what happens live coding? You forget or don't notice that you forgot something and then the code doesn't work. And it's great that we have the console to show us our errors. Should have opened it sooner. Okay, so we want to do the same for the wand. So let's grab the wand, this time with a selector. And because this kind of code repeats itself, I'm going to take it and move it to a different function, to separate function. What we also want to do here is actually to remove the magical item from the scene. So let's create another function called magical item collect handler that will receive the relevant entity, the element. And what we want to do is to remove the element from the scene. Okay, let's grab this. Let's move it over here. And we want to get the score. We want to pass the score as well. And let's grab send the text as well, or we can query it over here. Whatever you find more your style. Okay, so we have the score, we have this text, and we also want to grab the scene and remove the entity, the element from our scene. So remove element, so it won't appear in our magical world anymore. Okay, so I tell you what, I'm going to move those to here. That way we also don't need to pass them over here like this. And much cleaner. So we have the time turner and we want to call magical item with the time turner on click. And we want to do the same for Elder Wand. Add event listener also for click. And call the same magic handler, but this time with the wand. Let's see if it works. Let's wait for it to load. So we have this one. Yay, we collected. We have one more to collect. And we have 0 more to collect. Now let's add Dumbledore once we collect all the magical items. So we need a if else. And remove the child we need, a score, plus plus. And what we're going to do here, if score magical items, else. So we want to set the text, you have one more to collect only when we still have more to collect. Otherwise, we want to surprise them with Dumbledore. So in order to add an entity through code, what we need to do is to use the document, the DOM API for create element. So let's go ahead. Let's call it Dumbledore. And let's do a document, create element, create the entity first. And then what we want to do is to set the component of this entity using the set attributes. So we have Dumbledore and we want to set attribute, and we want to set scale, position, rotation, etc. And of course, the GLTF model of Dumbledore. Don't let me forget it. So let's start with this model, and let's use the query selector to Dumbledore. And let's add the text as well, set the position as well. Position, let's say we want to set the position to let's give it a scale. Because if I remember correctly, it's a bit tiny this time. So we have the GLTF model, we have the position, we have the scale. So we want to display Dumbledore, and of course we need to remember to attach it to our scene so it will be rendered. So let's use the scene and add append child and append Dumbledore to the scene. And we also want to set the text accordingly to set attribute value for congrats, you collected all the magical items. Let's see if it works. So we have the wand. Let's collect it. 1. Yay, congrats, you collected a magical item. You have 1 more to collect. Let's collect this one. Congrats, you collected all the magical items. I forgot the S for items. And here we have Dumbledore. And what I want to do here, I want to add additional animation. I want Dumbledore to dance a bit because he's happy. We collected all the items. And when I click on him, I want to also add the pancakes so I can invite my friends to meet me for pancakes. So let's rotate Dumbledore a bit. Set attribute rotation. Let's turn him like this. And I want to add animation on click. So let's add Dumbledore, add event listener for click. And I want them to dance a bit, rotate. So on click, what we want to do here is add, okay, what I want to do here is to add the pancakes. So I'm going to create additional element with documents. And I'm going to create this entity. And in the same way, I want to add pancake. What I want to do here is to set the attribute of the GLTF model. And this time to pancakes. And I want to set the position. To, let's say, I have a reason for selecting this position. You will soon see why. I want to place the pancakes on the table. And let's also give it a scale because it's a bit tiny. So let's give it a scale of 2. And of course, append it to our scene. Pen child, pancakes. And okay, so I click. I want to add also add a rotation for Dumbledore. Animation, sorry. Now we can also provide, animation. We can provide either string or we can provide an object. It's preferred to provide an object for a multi-property component. It saves A-frame for time from parsing. Sorry. So let's say property. Rotation. Two. Because we set it to 20, let's give it like this. And we are good to go. And let's say we want start event. We specify when this animation starts. Start event. Let's say click. Hopefully it will work. Let's give it a try. Okay, let's collect the first item, the second item, and Dumbledore is turning around. And when we click on it, we have the pancakes. Now I want to add additional event listener for when we click on the pancakes. I want to display the invitation. So starts. Maybe it starts events. Let's see, because it rotated even though I haven't clicked on it. So I want to check it out. 1, 2. Okay, now it's better. I was missing the S from start events. And we have Dumbledore dancing. We have the pancakes over here. Now let's add event listener for the pancakes. add event listener for click. And what I want to do on click, I want to set the text, set attribute value to meet me at Benedict on Friday at 12:30 for some pancakes. I think it's the most original invitation for friends to meet me for pancakes. I really hope they will love it. And you can do the same. You can even create your own, I don't know, wedding invitation or birthday invitation, and you can really create amazing stuff with it. And one last thing I want to do, I want to change the crosser from a ring to a Harry Potter related. Let's change it to Harry Potter wand. Now, because primitives or entities are under the hood, we can also attach regular components to them. And let's use Harry wands. Now, I think it's a bit, we need to scale it a bit. Otherwise, it will be too big. Well, will it work? Will it work? Yay. And now we have Harry Potter's wand, which is much more nicer. So click, one more item to collect, click. Yay, congrats, you collected all the magical items. And now once we click on Dumbledore, yay, he dances and we have our pancakes. Let's see if the text changes. And meet me at Benedict on Friday at 12:30 for some pancakes. Now, isn't it nice? Now you can go and have fun with it and be creative. That's the point. Like, I know you probably won't use it on your day-to-day job, or but for fun and for creativity, it's so much. It is so nice and so cool things we can create. And I'm going to upload it and send my friend this invite, and hopefully they will meet me. Otherwise, I might consider our friendship. So you saw it easy it was with just plain HTML file and a little bit of JavaScript code, and we are good to go. So thanks to all the creators of the 3D models that I use. All the models are licensed under the Creative Commons attribution. So thank you. And I hope you enjoyed. This is the A-Frame, by the way, documentation. You can really go and check it out. I really recommend it. You can really do amazing stuff with A-Frame. And I want to thank you so much for attending this talk. I hope I inspired you to get some magic done and channel your creative side. And you can also, you can use AI to create models. You can use AI to generate an image that you can use as your background. And you can really create customized magical virtual world. And if you have a VR headset, please let me know if it works also on the VR headset. And if share your project with me. And I hope you enjoyed AppStack and have a wonderful day.